we have to start with Sting, Tommy, and Sting from the rafters last night. Didn't see that coming. What a moment last night.
As my good friend Victoria Lisa Marie would say, old school. Man, that was great. I think because I was listening to some chatter before, and I stay away from all your conversations before the show because then we wind up talking about wrestling, and we got to talk about it on the show, so we save our best material for the show. I enjoyed the thread throughout the show with the Young Bucks, showing up in the limo, um, being abusive of their power, having the baseball bats, the white bats, and all throughout this thread of the show where they're looking for Sting. And then, you go in another part. I enjoyed the Eddie Kingston interview, and there was kind of a tie-in as well with Eddie and the Young Bucks because he made a comment. And I feel everyone within the Dynamite roster or AEW roster should be talking about Sting. They should do a whole documentary on it, just because of what it means for him to be in the locker room. If I think of what Terry Funk did for everyone in ECW, we really never captured it. You have the ability to capture stuff like this right now while the guy is still here. Um, and then you go into the room with all the baseball bats, which is a little ominous Sting. Also, the black and red could have gone to NWO Sting, if you think about that. And then, dude, I loved it. And when you do something right, you do something right, right? They lay out Darby, and then you hit Sting's music, the place pops, and you see the Young Bucks go up the ramp. You see them go up the ramp, and they're waiting, and then the shot down the ramp, and then you see Sting descend from the rafters. That's magic. That's movie making for younger fans. That's what we got almost every friggin' Monday night or Thursday night when it used to be Nitro and Thunder. But it was really, really cool to see. And we haven't seen wrestlers like, propel like that for a long, long time, obviously, because of the death of Owen Hart. But just that one iconic thing that was such a big part. Because, I mean, and a lot of our nation members remember, Sting coming from the rafters at all points. I actually thought they were going to swerve us and it was going to be a fake swing when Nick and Matt went back to the ring. And then here came regular Sting from the back. But just to do that one more time was just awesome. It really and truly was. And the crowd loved it. It was an amazing moment. Also, I mean, honestly, Tony Schiavone's last on television, it's Sting call was another iconic call.
Yeah.
And very, very um, made you feel reminiscent. Ric Flair getting involved and Ric Flair still going out there and, getting his ass whooped. Still trying to be the dirtiest player of the game, the eye rake, then get a nut shotted and both Nick and Matt stomping him down. It was a great setup to make Sting's last television appearance like that memorable.
Hey, Ric Flair's 75, Tommy, and he's out there, doing the best he can and having that kind of a moment and seeing Sting coming down from the rafters. And the one thing you have to say, Tommy, in this last run of Sting in AEW is he's put it all out there. Like, I mean, Sting has gone balls to the wall. Like, I am so happy for Sting that he has had this last run in AEW. We talked about it at length many times about, man, the last run that he had with WWE, just very, very underwhelming. Uh, the injury during the Seth Rollins match, but even just the creative booking of Sting during that period wasn't very good. I'm so happy that Tony Khan gave AEW, gave Sting this last run in AEW because, man, it's a nice exclamation point on a Hall of Fame career.
That's the other part I was going to say is AEW has done Sting right. They held Sting to that Sting presence from every version of Sting. I mean, I honestly was saying, man, could you imagine if he just like, I know we're seeing this version of Sting, but if he just came out and buzzed his hair and dyed it blonde and came out as in that building for like, hey, my career started, I look like this. At the end of the day, I look like this. I was just like, what a moment that would be, that he totally transformed into old, brand new Sting, this place where his career started. I don't think that's going to happen, but just saying, like, there's been so many different faces of Sting, so many looks of Sting, but AEW has done Sting right, and that is a credit to Tony Khan. And like you said, Sting has been all go for everything because again, they're playing to your strengths and they're doing you just how you're supposed to be done to be kept special. I mean, it's just so cool to see it. It really and truly is.
The fact that we saw Sting come from the rafters last night in his last Dynamite, I can't imagine what kind of entrance he's going to have on Sunday. Like I am super excited about Sunday's pay-per-view. And I mean, as we get closer, we'll talk about the other matches, but man, it really is all about Sting. I feel like everybody probably bought a ticket to the
Oh,
Greensboro
absolutely.
Coliseum on Sundays because it's going to be Sting's last match. And, we've been talking a lot about should Sting lose? Should Sting win? Should it be a down note that could continue a story for AEW? Should it be a moment of celebration? I mean, I'm still on the fence about that. You can make a case for either way, Tommy. But one thing that's crazy, that a man who debuted in the wrestling business in 1985, here in 2024 is going to have his last match. That's a very, very long career. And it really ends, the golden era of pro wrestling that, Tommy, you and I grew up watching, right? I mean, he's kind of like one of those last elements of that era. And it's going to be tough saying goodbye to Sting on Sunday.
Yesterday when we were having that conversation, it made me think after the show, and that's where sometimes myself we become too critical, where I have to just sit back and be a fan. You and I, when we first heard about it, we were like, hey, man, if our schedules work out, I'd like to be there. It didn't work out for my schedule, it didn't work out for your schedule. But, I went to Derek Jeter's last two games, and his last game, he was 0 for 4. And then his last game at Yankee Stadium, he had a heroic game winner. And then they still had 3 more games to play. But he was just like, I can't end it any better. And the only way better, of course, would have been the World Series, but at home, a game winner, and it was such full of emotion. And I mean, I was jumping up and down, uh, and I purposely, like, I took my daughters who were really really young to go there so they could say, not even that they could remember it, but like they saw Derek Jeter play. There's iconic players in every sport. Sting is an iconic player. But like when we talk about what placement on the card, oh, I don't care if it's first, middle, last, how the finish is. Because I was also thinking if Derek Jeter went off 0 for 4, people would have still given the guy a standing ovation the moment he walks out, tips his cap, and says goodbye. Um, so that's when I think that's us being social media, being very, very critical of something that's going to be very, very special. Because after Sunday, this guy goes away. And, you said it, over 30 some odd years. Sting is 10 to 11 years older than me. And we were, when Bubba was having the conversation with Alex Shelley, a guy in his, just turning 40s, it's who was that next generation of wrestlers? Because it went from the Dudleys, the Hardys, Edge and Christian, to the Alex Shelleys, the Motor City Machine Guns. What's that next generation? These are these wrestlers that are in their prime in their 30s, and we're now losing that generation. There are very few. First of all, I got to say, top guys that are still going out there. We have who? Ricky Morton and Mike Jackson are probably the only and no disrespect to Mike Jackson, but Mike Jackson was never a top guy. And like when I watch Mike Jackson work, I'm blown away. Same with like every time Ricky Morton steps into the ring, because you're like, hey man, you don't know when it's gonna be your last. And Ricky's still pounding it out on the indies, but I mean, Sting is the last top guy to be out there on the scene. Just I was never as appreciative to Terry Funk after ECW because I was like, my God, like what happened? I was ringside for Ricky Steamboat's last match, and I was just like, oh, man, I wish he didn't. I wish this was on a bigger stage, but I wish he didn't leave. And like we're this is gonna happen on Sunday, and you just honestly like it's sad, but like you said, it's an end of an era, and we're witnessing it live, and it's not to be sad about it. I look at it as to rejoice because I got to live through that. Same did you, same to you. We lived through an amazing time in the wrestling industry where it was so insane, dude. And if you lived it through it, you appreciated it. Now the business is completely different. It's even bigger, but that time in the industry, and he was the face of it. He was the face of a company going up against, another company. And honestly, there was three wrestling companies. If you think about it now, to make a full-time living, there's four, three to four. And so what has changed? A lot, but then also what has changed? Not so much.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and Tommy, I agree with you 1,000%. Last night and even what we're going to see on Sunday, not a time to complain, not a time to nitpick. If there's ever a time not to be negative, it's watching that show or the end of that show last night and then watching what we're going to see on Sunday. Because like you said, Derek Jeter goes 0 for 4. Doesn't matter what he did in his last game. What matters is what he gave to you his entire career and all those moments and memories for you to celebrate. And I remember, reading about Sting in the wrestling magazines, Tommy, when he first hit the scene. I remember first learning about Sting in Main Event magazine. All right. My 8th grade year. All right. Think about that. I'm reading about Sting and I'm in the 8th grade. I'm now a 52-year-old man, you know? So when I watched that show on Sunday, that's Sting has been a part of my life since the 8th grade. And now I'm 52. Like that's what I'm going to be thinking about. I'm going to be thinking about those moments, those memories, Mid-South or the UWF and all those moments in WCW and the NWA. Tommy, you and I and Jonathan Hood are taping a show this afternoon that's going to drop on Sunday on the Busted Open podcast, where we're going to do a deep dive into that Clash of the Champions in 1988 and Sting and Flair from 1988. That was really the match that made Sting. Probably most people would say the greatest match in Sting's career. That was 1988. It's 2024, and the guy's coming down from the rafters on live TV. Like, if that doesn't get you emotional, if that doesn't get you excited, if that doesn't give you goosebumps, then I got to question you as a wrestling fan. Because, man, like, when you see that, you got to think about all the things, all the memories, all the moments that this man has given you, not in the months and the years, but the decades that he has sacrificed for you as a wrestling fan. Pretty special moment last night for me.
And Dave, let me tell you, getting strapped into that harness, I've had it done to me. It hurts. It's a full body harness that he has to unclip from the back, but that actual harness that's holding your own weight when you're descending down, it wraps around your legs, it wraps around your armpits, and then it goes across your back to your belly. and the propel down is your own weight, and it hurt so much. I had to do a movie, and I was murdered, hung from a tree, and they hung me from a tree with the thing in my back, and I was just like, oh my god, this hurts so much. And they even had a stunt person who was just like, yeah, it's a lot of pressure in your legs. And I think I felt it more because of what I did for my body. Same with Sting. I mean, we'll get into more about Sting and like his athleticism and all that stuff, but just that one segment was super duper special. Again, having Ric Flair out there, the guy that, put you on the map at 75 years old, the job that Darby did, the job that Nick and Matt did, everybody went out there to make Sting exactly what he was and always was, special. And that crowd there, man, you got one hell of a show, but you got an iconic moment that would last forever. I mean, think of all the when, Sting came in and did that to the NWO. And like he was the first guy to fight the resistance of the NWO. And, then he was part of the black and red NWO. But that moment of him in WCW really helped WCW survive and keep on battling the WWE. But there was in an alternate universe, the WWE may not have been in existence if WCW took over. But they had two things. They had Bill Goldberg and they had the NWO. And then they also, I should say three things. They had Sting, and Sting brought it back. That Crow thing it was everywhere. But Sting, I mean, honestly, I know, and Sting is on everybody's Mount Rushmore for WCW. Has to be. Because then I will ask you who shouldn't be on that Mount Rushmore of WCW.
When you talk about WCW, I believe that Sting is on that Mount Rushmore of WCW. And I know I get labeled as a Sting hater. I'm not a Sting hater. And today is not the conversation to have. This is not the conversation to have today anyway. But it's more of a celebration of somebody that was in the business for 40 years. It's crazy to think about that. But Sting gave a lot, and you're right. He was a key player during that time when it was the Monday Night War and WCW going up against the WWF.
And, if you think about like your top baby faces of that era and people who were so different, game changers, Sting, Steiners, Lex Luger. Lex Luger for his physique, Sting was energy, man. Like it's the best way to describe him, but also jumping over the top rope. And I'm not like talking about a regular house show dive. I'm talking about clearing the top rope and diving almost into the audience. And the Steiners, who were just this innovative tag team. A lot could be said for that, like how AEW was first formed with Kenny, the Bucks, and Cody. Of just like, hey, these are the four people we're starting our company with. Historically, you could do a deep dive and do a lot of comparisons, but Sting was the man. And again, I'm very, very happy that AEW has given us this and has done this person right. I couldn't have asked for a better version of it, from, the music, how he debuted, to even how he's going out. It's going to be a special, special night that I think if you're a wrestling fan, you're like, man, I just got to see this.
And even last night, Tommy, seeing, Sting, seeing Ric Flair, Tony Schiavone on commentary, when we do that deep dive of Clash of the Champions 88, Flair and Sting in the ring with Tony Schiavone on commentary, like to be able to still have that in 2024, come Sunday, we're not going to have that anymore. And, like a lot of people, and you kind of block out the negativity. A lot of people talking about Flair and how Flair looked like. Ric Flair's 75 years old. I love to see some of these people just try to get into a wrestling ring, much less get into a wrestling ring and have physicality like Ric Flair had. Like, the man is 75, Tommy, and is still performing for an audience. Again, like there's going to be a point where you're not going to have that. We talked about that with Virgil yesterday. People would joke about, Virgil was at every meet and greet. Virgil was at every conference and everything else, and like all these autograph shows. Well, now you're not going to see Virgil anymore. So I hope you got your autographed 8x10, because now Virgil's no longer with us. You
Well,
have to celebrate those moments when you can, Tommy, because you don't know when those moments are going to be completely gone.
with regarding to Rick, honestly, like he has survived death and being on death's door how many times? Besides the fact that, he was in a plane crash that it broke his back, that another, wrestler, I think two wrestlers passed away, one guy was crippled. Um, then we have, towards I don't know how many years ago where, hey, it was Ric Flair's passing and he's back and living life to the fullest. But I mean, these are real things that happen. And again, I don't address the haters at all, but I would love to say to anybody, when you are that person's age and have done the things that you have done, you and I were talking about the Masters, but we both had to go and watch uh the match again with him, and this is just in one match. How many top rope bumps did he go off, and take? How many military presses, hip tosses, all these things that he did, and he would do that every night, sometimes 9 days a week because of his schedule. Um, but go and see anybody, or go like ask your grandfather, hey, can you walk up steps, step into a ring, throw a chop? His chop was crisp. Can you go and fall down and be able to get back up? And hey, can you throw a punch? These are all things that, or maybe when you get to that age, you say to yourself, maybe I shouldn't have said stuff about that person back in the day.